What do we do?
I don't know. Who are you?
What do I say? Luckily, it's written down for me. Live from your ESG bath salts inhaler kit. One of my favorite kits, especially during the holiday season. It's a Business Pants Friday show here at December 6th Studios featuring AnalystHole Matt Moscardi.
Who?
Fresh back from some conference somewhere in the world, in the United States.
The RIUSA 2024.
On today's weekly wrap-up, murder. Yeah, it's true, murder. Ugh.
Yikes.
Black women fighting back, investor cowards, and the darkest reason yet for a CEO and board pay cut.
Oh.
There's a lot of dark.
The darkest reason.
There's a lot of dark stuff in our show today. Our show today is being sponsored by FreeFlowAnalytics.com, the only platform measuring board power, connections, and performance for free. So if you're one of the people who's ever wondered out loud or to yourself or to your friends, if you have friends, whether a board is competent or not, the first place you might want to start to answer that question, the first place you might want to go to is freeflowanalytics.com. That can help you on that road of figuring out board competency. Because when I hear board competency, it does imply incompetency as well. So maybe you want to try to figure it out for yourself.
I like how you're always looking at the opposite side of things. Speaking of, I moderated a panel at RIUSA.
It's not why I bring it up.
Big thanks to the panelists there and Responsible Investor.
Yep.
And it was on board competence. And thanks to Free Flow Analytics.
What did you discover?
I discovered that they're all competent.
Okay.
That's
all
what
of
I
them.
discovered. All of them, yeah.
How do they explain the amount of short-term CEOs, like the CEOs getting fired quickly and getting huge severance packages and then having to pay huge golden hello packages for the next CEO? How does the board explain that? That doesn't sound very competent.
I asked the question
as an example
during the panel. I said, whenever an activist investor shows up, all of a sudden, no one's competent on the board, right?
Right.
But the year prior, they were competent. I do have to say, of the conference, I was a bit shocked by this. Probably a half dozen to a dozen people came up to me at some point and said, "Are you the guy from the podcast?"
The guy.
Someone is listening.
Are we just one guy now?
They saw my tag and they were like, "Are you the Matt Moscardi from?" Like, there's a lot of Matt.
If you're the
Moscardis
guy from the podcast, what am I exactly?
You're the
child?
other guy.
The other guy.
Yeah, you're the other guy on the podcast. So somebody's listening. So maybe we should say something important today. What do we got?
Well, to no one's surprise, you ready for this? You want to just get right into the show?
Let's do it. Hold on. I got to play you in because there's a lot to discuss.
Before I get to the story of the week, explain something to me, Matt. Over the years, we have met an incredible amount of resistance from investors on the sheer notion of voting no on directors, right?
Yeah.
So
true.
why in all the surveys of directors themselves do they find that there is incompetence among them on the board? Like, there are other directors that they don't think should be on the board in the first place.
Yeah, every survey says there's at least directors.
One.
They say there's at least one director that shouldn't be there.
At least
what they
one,
say, right?
Yeah.
I think
which Matt, if you do the weird third grade math, that means that their fellow director on the board also might thinks there's at least one. It could be they could be thinking of each other, which means that there's two people on the board, right?
I actually think so. Have you ever played the game Among Us? Have you ever played that game?
Let's just say yes. Let's just say yes.
It's sort of like a Risk, but online. Effectively, you're voting out people.
Yeah, I know AOC famously played this on Twitch. I know that.
She played it on Twitch at one point. I think they should have to disclose which director
why not
the rest of the directors think shouldn't be there.
Why not?
On an annual basis.
You know what? How about start with
investors.
This? If you're uncomfortable with actually saying their name, give everyone a code name, and then cite the code name of who is the director who's incompetent, and then we can work on deciphering the code, right? That'd be fun for us.
This sounds foolproof.
That'd be fun for us.
This sounds foolproof. Yeah. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Story.
Well, unfortunately, this one is obvious. We both were away all week and we missed the craziest named executive officer story of the year ever. I don't know. This is just nuts. But everyone knows this story by now. The murder of Brian Thompson.
Yeah, not good.
United Healthcare CEO. So he's not the CEO of United Healthcare Group. If anyone's confused, he's actually a named executive officer. He is an executive. He was an executive vice president of the group, but he was the CEO of the unit, United Healthcare. Anyway, he was killed in New York. I don't know what day, Wednesday, but I'm sure I was thinking about how to present the story, and I realized that like everyone probably knows all of the details of the story. Matt, this is so troubling that the only social media app I ever interact with is Reddit, and I don't actually participate. I just kind of lurk, and I mostly look at stuff in my local city. Just to see what's going on and what people are complaining about, what restaurants are opening and closing. But right at the top of my feed was a video that auto played, because I guess that's just, I don't know, when you
How
scroll,
goes, yeah.
the videos play. And it was footage of this guy, Brian Thompson, the name executive, being shot. Ooh. It was right there. I didn't even have a choice. It just started playing, and I was like, what is this? And I 5 seconds in, he's shot. I mean, this is how crazy our world is. Not only are named executive officers getting murdered, but it's already available on social media for people to watch.
Like 9 seconds later, but the reactions on social media were...
Okay, let me get to that. So I'm not going to get into the details of the story, but I was going to wrap up. I was going to summarize this story by just citing some of the headlines that we have tagged here at Free Float. United Health CEO's killing unleashes social media rage against insurers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
After United Healthcare CEO shooting, Americans express frustration with health insurance industry. Again, they're not citing frustration with murderers or people who own guns, although they should do that too. Killing of United Healthcare CEO prompts flurry of stories on social media over denied insurance claims. There's a lot of that. Partly one of the reasons here is that there was actually... there were words inscribed on some of the ammunition. Two of those words were delay and deny. There is a book written by a professor at Rutgers Law called Delay, Deny, Defend, a book that discusses how health insurance companies avoid paying patients' claims. Other headlines include slain United Healthcare CEO is accused of insider trading. Social media swoons over alleged United Healthcare CEO killer amid investigation. I guess a lot of people are finding him good looking.
Oh, that's...
Brian Thompson didn't seem to have a bodyguard, and that surprises corporate security consultants. Another headline, a wake-up call, C-suite security comes into focus after United Healthcare CEO's death. So that's just some of the headlines covering the story.
All right, two things struck me about the story.
Other than the fact that NEO was murdered. I hope that's one of them that struck you.
Number one, that no one says he's an NEO. All I read was that he was I thought the CEO of United Healthcare was shot, not the CEO of the healthcare division of United Healthcare.
I'm with you.
So
I was off on jury duty. So one of the things on jury duty is you're not allowed your phone. So I wasn't really focusing on this story, and I kind of heard the highlights like you did. And I too thought it was the CEO of a publicly traded company. It's not even the CEO, right? So that they already got that wrong is crazy to me.
I'm not trying to minimize his
course
death.
Not.
I'm trying to say that the media is reporting it in a way that's different from the reality. Because this is another piece of evidence that nuance is dead. Because to say like a named executive officer who was leading the healthcare division was shot, it's too much of a garbled mouthful, so they all just say the CEO of United Healthcare shot.
And this is the thing I've been shouting about for years, is just I'm always in shock how little understanding there is at all about the corporate world, like just about the people who run the corporate world, the directors, the NEOs, the CEOs. And in fact, the one thing I always talk about is how when they cite CEOs in headlines, often they don't even name them. They just call them like target CEO.
To that point, I saw his name more than I see like a CEO like says that like they're going to reverse DEI policies, and it just says Walmart CEO says they're reverse. This guy's name, Brian Thompson, was everywhere. I said it was in every headline. CEO Brian Thompson,
My question is, do you think that this, now that there's so much there's so much backlash on social media against insurance companies, they're not exactly sympathetic to this named executive officer Brian Thompson. Do you think there's going to be a change in coverage of how business news covers companies, or maybe a change in coverage from normal news, or do you think?
This is interesting.
Oh, you don't think people change? Okay, all right.
Interesting point.
What else do you have to say about this?
That does bring me to point 2.
Go ahead.
Which is the social media rage against insurers. Now, is all the social media rage coming from blue states in this country? Because doesn't every other state hate Obamacare, not want socialized medicine, not want controlled, they're fighting against price caps because that's not free market capitalism?
Well, you're talking about the politicians. I think most Americans do want universal health care, do they not?
Well, then, this gap, there's clearly a gap. No one likes insurers. Mm-hmm. We want a different system. We all think it's broken. But half of the elected officials don't want to repeal anything that looks like healthcare reform, and the other half can't get anything done to reform it. So,
what's your point here?
My point, those were just my thoughts.
Those are your thoughts.
It wasn't a point. It was that immediately occurred to me with the slew of stories.
Again, this is one of the few stories that we cover here on this show that people already are reading all about and hearing all about, that we don't really like.
Well, I got to take a little bit further on that. I'll bring up later.
And I was going to say, we can move on. My only perspective on this, and I'm certainly not on any. I'm not advocating for murder or violence on any level. But the one thing I did notice, because we were talking about in our pre-production meeting, is that this is like a groundswell of populist ESG sleuthing. Suddenly, all my friends are sending me charts about, the percentage of customers who are all this stuff, and how much their salary is, and how many options he's getting.
ESG analyst.
And I was like, hey, this is what we do every day. Why don't you pay attention to what we're talking about? But I did look at he is a named executive officer. He is listed in the proxy statement. I did look at his pay, and it is quite noticeable that none of his pay targets were attributable to anything related to customers or patients. Nothing.
Ooh.
And I think this is a little bit odd, because we do see in a lot of service industries that there's at least some sliver of pay dedicated to customer satisfaction or something. But these execs at United Healthcare, none of it. It's all.
Was it all the execs or just
all
the
of them.
NEOs?
All of them. All of the listed NEOs. It's just revenue, earnings per share, that kind of thing. So
that's the fascinating thing. We've done only a few times on the show do we talk about NEO pay versus CEO pay, right? CEO pay gets all the headlines. We talk about, because the numbers are bigger, everyone pays attention to it. But the NEO pay, often they have it can be shorter term. The targets for each NEO are very different. They're not the same targets as the CEO. A lot of them are just revenue based, which fine, except that in a case like this, then you start wondering what the incentives are, right? Like the incentives aren't the outcomes to your patients, the people who need you. It's personal outcomes and share outcomes.
Well, this is where the shareholder versus stakeholder argument comes into full focus.
If you're not careful, you're going to sound like an ESG analyst soon.
Yeah. There is one headline I didn't mention, which was murdered insurance CEO had deployed an AI to automatically deny benefits for sick people. So this is a conspiracy theorist dream, unfortunately, the sad story. So that's the story of the week, but I'll also tell you the other things that happened that we would have covered.
Well, I will determine what the story of the week is.
That's true. You're the vote. We had a lot of CEOs stepping down. Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger is ousted by board after disastrous performance.
Ooh, ousted by board.
They've already they have interim co-CEOs. I don't remember interim co-CEOs.
No, come on.
They've also already appointed 2 new directors to the board. This is the stuff that drives me crazy about the boards of directors at these publicly held companies. I say that in air quotes. Is that they've already added, without any investor input, without any vote, nothing, they've already added 2 directors. They're already on the board serving.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy to me. They should go through some kind of a shareholder vote, but that's just my perspective. Also, Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares also stepping down again.
Wow. Ooh.
They say the board got sick of him. And finally, a story that we probably would have covered in a lot more detail, but Tesla CEO Elon Musk, you heard of him. He loses his bid to get his $56 billion pay package reinstated. So,
there we go.
The same chancellor, Kathleen McCormick, is saying that no, not going to happen.
That's it. That's she just wrote no on a piece of paper and sent it.
And she had this to say, which I thought was interesting about the shareholder vote. This is what the Muskies are all. They're all upset because of this so-called shareholder vote that re-ratified his pay. She said, even if a stockholder vote could have a ratifying effect, it could not do so here. Were the court to condone the practice of allowing defeated parties to create new facts for the purpose of revising judgments, lawsuits would become interminable. So that's what she said about that.
You know, there was one point that she made that she basically said, a similar thing in a different way, which is like you basically made your own evidence and used that to get yourself repaid, which you can't do.
Yeah.
But she's absolutely right that like she basically what they tried to do is they used the court. The court said the board was incompetent and controlled at the time.
Musk controlled the board.
Yeah. Basically, she opened up freeflowanalytics.com, our sponsor, went to the Tesla page, and saw that Musk owns 64%.
This is the perfect use case for our data. If you ever were wondering and you're too stupid not to use our data, is that she said in her original ruling that Musk has individually controls Tesla and dictated the terms of his compensation to a board that did not fairly negotiate. And again, you can see that in our data quite clearly because despite the fact that he does not own a controlling stake of the company, he controls
all the influence.
He controls over 60% of the board influence. To her point.
But in this sort of like denial of the ratification, she's effectively saying like, okay, so you were incompetent and controlled. Then all you did was take that decision, attach it to the proxy and say, well, now you know that we were incompetent and controlled. So now when you vote, you know that we are controlled.
So now what do you think?
Vote on it, right? And she's like, you're missing the point, folks. Like you can't, that doesn't work. You can't do that, right?
This is clearly not over. I mean, it'll be appealed again, no? Right?
It'll be appealed. Sure. Yeah. I think the appeal will take place in Texas now, though, right?
But did they have any say?
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
If they don't appeal, the appeal I think would happen in Delaware. So if they don't appeal, they will just set new pay for this year.
I was going to say, why not just do that? Why are they appealing this? Why not just come up with some other horrible pay scheme?
There's a massive accounting charge that can happen, right? Like, so the accounting charge is $2 billion because when the options were granted in 2018, the price was very different. But today it would be a $25 billion accounting charge.
Because it's a meme stock,
Because it's a meme stock. Although there's no evidence that anyone would care because it's a meme stock. No one's going to care about it. It's not cash changing hands. It's just an accounting charge. I don't think anyone's going to care. So when they file it in Texas, right, then the question is, will Texas not care about his pay? And the chances are they won't. That's why he moved there.
I'm done talking about Elon Musk. Your stories of the week that you can vote on.
It's Brian Thompson.
Okay.
There's no question.
Unfortunately, that's it. Yeah. I mean, not the CEO of the publicly traded entity, but a named executive officer nonetheless.
A named executive officer getting shot with a guy with a silencer, right?
Yeah, and a guy who clearly a disgruntled stakeholder. That's all you could. What else could you call him, right? Because as you pointed out, this guy. I mean, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but he seems to be a disgruntled former customer who did his research and. Yeah, I mean, right? Something. I mean, this is not like someone who was just trying to get his gold necklace.
All I know is thank God that the Business Roundtable is now stakeholder focused instead of shareholder.
Well, can I just say to
Thank
all
God.
of you amateur sleuths out there, can you please finally join us? We do this every day. I know it's not always going to be a
Send us
murder.
your
It's
sleuths.
not going to be a murder, thank God, but we're doing this constantly with all companies. I know it seems incredibly nerdy, but it's kind of fun to dig into this stuff, which you're learning now. You don't need a gun. You don't need a gun in murder to make everything relevant in your lives, people.
The best sleuthing Damien's ever done was realizing that the board of O'Reilly Automotive all wears the same uniforms except for like one guy.
Yeah,
like,
join
why is
us.
That's great.
Join us.
All right, let's move on to Goodliest of the Week.
It's hard to find Goodliest these days.
I know. I only got
try.
one. I got one, and it's adjacent, really.
You want to go first on yours? Yours is a little silly. Mine's a bit
mine's
more
a little
serious.
Silly.
Yeah.
This is the headline: Mattel sued over Wicked dolls with porn website link.
Yeah. You're suing them for that. Okay.
So a mother in South Carolina is suing Mattel. So if you bought Wicked, the movie based off the musical, based off the book,
Based off
came
of
out for
the
Disney.
blah, 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 blah.
It's breaking every box
Sure.
office record right now. But even though no one goes to movies anymore, it's still like now the biggest grossing movie at
Even though
Thanksgiving
it's
ever, right?
though it's incredibly woke, right? Wasn't it like created by people of color and women and everything?
Everyone's
so I thought
complaining
woke.
about it.
I thought
the
woke doesn't
wokeness.
work. I thought woke
I
just
saw
fails.
one far right commentator. She was saying that like she's so tired of white people being portrayed as dumb, and incompetent.
Is that what's happening in Wicked?
And went on to call Ariana Grande, called her Hispanic, even though
Okay.
she's Italian.
Sure, Grande.
I
knew that from my Starbucks knowledge.
But it's a big deal. Wicked's big. Little girl goes out, buys, the doll, the Wicked doll, brings it home, like one of the characters in Glinda or whatever, brings it home, I guess, is looking at the box and in really tiny print on the bottom says www.wicked.com.
And she actually looked at the box and went to this website. This is real.
So first of all,
child.
Yes, the child did this by
believe
herself,
it.
apparently.
I don't believe
so
it.
first of all,
I don't believe
like, how old is the child?
Yeah,
like
none of my
7?
kids ever go to a website about anything. It's
and
not possible.
which of them are typing in the website name? Like,
No, it's never.
Okay.
It's not. It hasn't happened since 1997.
Apparently what happened was they meant to write wickedmovie.com, but they wrote wicked.com. Wicked.com is actually a porn company, wicked.com.
Sure.
Now, in the name of research, went to wicked.com.
What's just funny because I went to wickedmovie.com.
There is no nudity on the landing page for wicked.com.
Oh,
There's
so
no nudity
you would
at
have
all.
had to dig around.
You would have had to pay to see the nudity. So
which I'm sure the daughter did. The daughter has her own little
she has her own credit
junior
card.
Goldman Sachs card or something.
This is actually, if I'm honest, they had how when a movie comes out, they have all those little scrolls on the bottom of the page saying like one Sundance Award, one whatever. This won like 30 awards. This company won like 30 porn awards. So
okay,
good for them.
Yeah.
But they're now suing Mattel because the daughter went to the tiny misprinted URL.
Well,
and
allegedly
didn't see any porn, but it was a porn site. They say they suffered mental distress.
Really?
Here's the goodliest part of it.
Yeah.
You can't, they obviously recalled the 20 packages that had the wicked.com and they replaced them with wickedmovie.com. But you can buy the misprinted packages on eBay for up to $450 now. Isn't that fabulous? That's like do you remember the baseball card, the Cal Ripken? No, it wasn't Cal. It was Bill. It was Cal Ripken.
Billy Ripken.
Was it Billy Ripken?
Yeah,
it was Billy Ripken.
Disgruntled
He's holding
brother.
The bat. He had a bat, and on the bottom it said like "FU" or something that.
Yeah.
And that card became like the card.
Yep.
For like 10 years, everybody wanted the FU card. That's this. I love it. It's fabulous.
We've complained about Mattel in the past for their they have an outsized gender influence gap on their board. I think it's currently at negative like 15%. and it's run by two dudes, and Enon Kreitz, and of all things, a Dolan family member, Michael Dolan.
No.
Those
Come
two
on,
control
get out.
43% of the influence on a board on a company that makes toys for kids. People, these two weirdo men. Sorry to join the
They should
woke
put the kid
parade
who
here.
was detail oriented enough to go to wicked.com on the board. That's
So
really what they should be doing.
So here's my point. Instead of suing the company, why don't you blame some board members and try to get them voted out?
Ooh, look at you! Look at you!
All right, so my goodliest of the week, I'm actually focusing on black women fighting back. First was Namibia. Namibia has, once again, the United States is a loser. Namibia elects its first ever female leader.
Ooh, wow! I like that.
Her name is Natumbo Nandi Daitwa, and she was a member of the country's underground independence movement in the 1970s, and also the black mayor of Carborough, North Carolina. Her name is Barbara Fushi. The headline is North Carolina town sues Duke Energy over climate change.
Oh, wow.
So she's accusing, the whole town is accusing Duke Energy of ignoring data about climate change while increasing use of fossil fuels. So there you go. Two women.
So yours
two black
are real,
women. Yeah.
but mine might be funnier.
Well, there's
hard to
there's
vote.
not a competition, or maybe it is a competition.
It's all a competition.
I don't see how yours is good.
I'm voting for Namibia. That's the
Okay,
only
fine.
real good one.
Yeah, U.S. losing again. The U.S. still can't elect a woman to be a president.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right, let's do assholiest.
Oh,
Let's
boy.
get it over with.
Okay.
Because if we don't get it over with now,
We're flying through
gonna
this
be here all
show,
day.
sort of. Maybe we're not. It felt
Sort
like
of.
we're flying, yeah. I'm
all right. Your
highly
first
caffeinated.
assholiest.
Yeah, go
Well, I
ahead.
got 4.
Oh, boy.
So, the first assholiest.
Is the murder is a murderer one of them?
investor governance analysts.
What does that
are-
mean?
Here, this is going to sound a little crass, right?
Everything you say sounds a little crass.
I mean, on the edge of wrong, sure.
Yeah.
But it is about Brian Thompson's murder.
Sure.
Because, like, governance analysts, I was just at a conference. I just talked to governance analysts.
What was the conference again?
The RI USA 2024.
How come I wasn't
gov-
invited to this conference?
You're not important enough.
I know.
There were a lot of analysts there, a lot of people
I knew the
there,
reason,
a lot of
by the way.
thinkers there, a lot of interesting folk there,
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of good stuff. Now, this is one conference in 1,000, right? Like, there's a lot of conferences that go on all the time. You would think that, like, a governance analyst, say an ISS analyst, a Glass Lewis analyst, whatever, would be thinking deeply about the people who run these companies, right?
One would think, yes.
Not come out with statements like Nelson Peltz might be good for the Disney board, right, as their recommendation. They might have, like, done deep research and done some thoughts. I kind of, sort of, secretly admire the assassin
Oh, boy.
because
Yeah.
if an investor,
Where's
like
my-
an investor governance
Where's my
analyst,
buzzer? I'm going to beep you out. Yeah.
actually did as much research as this guy did to kill. So first of all, think about it. He
Yeah.
knew where Brian Thompson was.
Allegedly,
He
we
knew-
don't. We're guessing these things about this. Yeah. Yeah. But it does seem like this.
All the evidence seems to
All the
point
evidence
to
points this way. Yeah.
this way, right? Like, I'm not saying that I know. I'm saying, like, if I got my tinfoil hat on and my logic hat on at the same time, this is where I get to. He knew who Brian Thompson was, an NEO, not the CEO of the company, who must also be at Investor Day, right? He targeted the CEO of the division of the company that was most relevant.
Yes.
That's what he did, right? So how many people, if you are an investor, a governance analyst, could even name Brian Thompson? If you're an investor, be
Very
honest
few,
with yourself.
very few.
Could you have named Brian Thompson before he got shot?
No.
Zero people.
Zero.
They knew where he would be. They knew at what time he would be there.
Yeah.
They knew that it was Investor Day at all. Like,
Yeah.
most people who invest in these companies don't even know about Investor Day when they happen.
Because 96% of them vote yes automatically anyway in all directors, so they don't even need they don't care when Investor Day is. They don't need any new information. They already made up their minds.
And I don't know what this if this says more about the assassin or the market or what. But if you invested in the company pre-murder, you made money post-murder on the
Is that
stock.
right?
I'm not kidding. It was up 1% during the day.
I don't understand that. Yeah, I don't understand that.
So I have to kind of not admire anything about the murder.
Wait,
but
where are you going with this? Yeah, who's the asshole here?
The asshole here is, why can't governance analysts do 1/10 of that level of research?
And this is what I'm going to say.
People,
and this is what I want to say. I'm going to pretend for a moment that a lot of people listen to this show. I'm going to pretend that we have a pretty big audience. No, but this is why you should join us, because here's something also you might want to know about United Healthcare. First of all, they have a sizable, another company with a sizable gender influence gap, minus 16%, which is a bit outrageous considering how many healthcare decisions are probably made by the mothers and women of families. Because most men are pretty useless when it comes to making big decisions about healthcare. But the other thing is that the man with the most influence is the former CEO and current executive chair. His name is Stephen Hemsley. He has 32% of board influence. And one fun fact about this man, one fun fact among many, is that this guy used to be the CFO of one of the greatest failures in American accounting history at Arthur Andersen.
Really?
This guy was the CFO of Arthur Andersen, the company that is now defunct, involved with the Enron scandal. I mean, it pays to know who the people are that run these companies. I know people are resisting, but it's important to know who's on your board and who's making decisions.
I actually have that in the production notes that the current CEO, Andrew Whitty, isn't even the most influential on the board.
No, it's the former CEO and current executive chair. The guy who was, Matt, he was the CFO at Arthur Andersen of all places. I mean, talk about being rewarded for failure.
And look, the fact is, it does... I don't like having to sympathize with a murderer, obviously. That's not really my goal here. But when you do have stories about the AI automatically denying benefits, you mentioned that story. When we talked in pre-production, it made me think of that the Jamie Dimon quote. Mm-hmm. I found what I think is the quote, although it's not quite as I remember it. I remember him saying something about pitchforks. I remember him saying something about but the quote I found was, quote, "The fault line is inequality and its cause is staring us in the face, our own failure to move beyond our differences and self-interest and act for the greater good." He said that on April 7th of 2021, following the George Floyd, riots and all the problems from COVID, all of that stuff. He said many times about inequality. And this is like the living embodiment of it. But there isn't an investment analyst anywhere who's actually researching the people who run these companies. Yeah. Nowhere except on freeflowanalytics.com. That's the closest you get.
I mean, how about your executive chair, the guy with your most influence, he was involved with backdating stock options as one of his past jobs.
So was
backdating stock. Okay, I'm
Tim
just
Cook
saying
did the same thing.
Just saying.
So that's number one.
All right. What's number one? I'm already
governance
lost.
Analyst.
Got
Investor.
Does that include me?
Analyst.
Does that include me?
Oh,
I'm a governance analyst.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of a kind, of a type.
Here's number two. Are you ready for number two?
Yeah.
Anyone who calls a company woke. No one should call any company anywhere woke. Even
you're talking about a publicly traded company. You're not talking about a company of three people,
right? I'm talking about publicly traded companies,
an LLC in Atlanta or something.
Even ELF Beauty, who did a wonderful campaign about too many dicks.
There's nothing
on
woke
boards.
about makeup, Matt. I hate to break it to you.
I mean,
it's kind of anti-woke makeup.
They in ELF Beauty's "Too Many Dicks on Boards" campaign, they didn't mention the fact that they had a dick on their board. They had a guy named Richard on their board.
They also didn't mention all the problems with the cosmetics industry in the first place, but we're not going to get into that.
But here's the headline: why it's this week. Disney agrees to $43.3 million settlement in suit alleging it paid women less than men.
Right.
It just, as soon as I saw that, here's the quote I thought of. Quote, why do I have to have a Marvel that's all women? Not that I have anything against women, but why do I have to do that?
Yeah.
Why can't I have Marvels that are both? Nelson Peltz, April 3rd, 2024.
Well, this proves that Disney, at least systemically, it did have something against women, right? I mean, if that's if they're agreeing to a settlement, they did have something against women, I guess.
So what are we talking about? We just spent years talking about how Disney is too woke. In fact, even Wicked the movie, there are commentators talking about how it's too woke because there's a Hispanic, not a Hispanic woman and a black woman who have roles in it, right? Like,
don't get caught up in it, Matt. It's going to just mess you up.
And they are literally paying settlements because the company pays women less than men. Remind me what the woke part. None of these companies are woke. Companies are not woke. Yeah. They are profit seeking. They will sell you anything they can sell you. There is no large cap, publicly traded company that is out there doing something for your personal good.
They might have policies that benefit stakeholders in general, but that does not make them woke.
They're not woke.
No.
They're not woke.
But let's get off this. You're giving me a stomachache because we all know that woke, DEI, ESG, it's just code for women, people of color, gay people.
That's correct.
It's just backlash against the progress that they've made in our society over the last 50 years. That's all it really is.
So that's my number 2, asshole. Anyone, if you're calling companies woke, you're a fucking asshole. They're not woke.
And by the way, why is it bad to be Hispanic, quote unquote, and not Italian? What's the difference between Spain and Italy?
Oh, geez.
Why are they different? Why is it okay if she's from Italy? But I'm just saying in general. So she's woke. Okay, I don't know if any of you are aware of the geography of the European continent, but Spain is just a country that's a few countries removed from Italy, right? They both hug the Mediterranean Sea. Why is it woke to be from Spain but not from Italy? Can you please explain that to me?
The only reason why the far right
so confused.
Said that
I'm so
is
confused.
They looked at Ariana Grande.
Yeah.
They looked at her.
And they thought she was from Guatemala or something?
Like she's from Mexico.
She came from a caravan? Right. Oh, that's what they mean by Hispanic.
That's what they mean.
Okay.
They just mean like...
Silly me. Yeah.
All right, number 3. Cowards and liars.
Okay.
This is your third option. And I'm just going to read 4 headlines. Okay, ready? Coca-Cola accused of quietly dropping its 25% reusable packaging target.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola,
got bored.
You're a liar.
Yeah.
How about this? Racial diversity falling among new corporate directors, conference board reports.
Unfortunately, does not surprise me, yeah.
AT&T CEO, if Trump slashes taxes, we will invest more in American infrastructure.
This one killed me. That one really riled me.
Unbelievable. Yeah. We have literally 30 years of history that says when taxes on corporations are cut, no company invests in infrastructure. They invest in buybacks. In themselves. Yeah. That's all they ever invest in.
I mean, if you're a proud American company, you should always be investing in American infrastructure.
Unbelievable.
Always.
Last, the Texas, it's not a headline, but Texas and the GOP states sue BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street.
Yeah, there's 11 states, I believe.
11 states, attorneys general did it. Mm-hmm. And here's a quote from inside it. Now, remember, all 3 of those companies withdrew from the Climate Action 100 Plus in a full show of cowardice. Yeah. It was a brilliant about face on everything they said they believed in. Right? In climate and the climate risks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You're not going to be part of an organization that does that because you're so afraid that someone's going to target you for being part of that organization. Here's the quote from the actual lawsuit that was filed in Texas. Rather than individually wield their shareholdings to reduce coal output, therefore, defendants effectively formed a syndicate and agreed to use their collective holdings of publicly traded coal companies to induce industry-wide output reductions. So they're saying they're trying to reduce coal output using collective influence. Mm-hmm. To be sure, earlier this year, BlackRock and State Street publicly proclaimed that they withdrew from one of the organizations that they previously used to coordinate their anti-competitive conduct, Climate Action 100 Plus. Mm-hmm. But formal withdrawal from that one organization does not change the reality that defendants' holdings threatened to substantially reduce competition in violation of the Clayton Act. So effectively what they're saying is, yeah, you fucking cowards, you stepped off of that one thing, but we don't care. We're suing you anyway because we want to.
Yeah.
So what did you step off for? Grow a spine and stay in. This is what's going to happen. You drop out of DEI. Do you think that ends it? You think it's over? You think then, now no one cares. No one's going to pay attention. You think you leave the Climate Action 100 and, conservatives are going to leave me alone now. I'm not going to get sued. Yes, you will. That's not the point of this whole thing. The point is to make a political statement. That's it. It's to make a political statement. Stop being cowards. Have a spine. So number 3 was cowards and liars. I'm only doing 3 because I had a 4th, but it was lame.
I'll tell you what's more just to demonstrate what you're talking about, the odiousness of the odiosity.
I like that word. Good. No, odious. Odiosity sounds more fun.
Listen to this first line. This is the text, part of the complaint of the Attorney Generals that you were speaking of. Although this is the first paragraph of the introduction of this case. For the past 4 years, America's coal producers have been responding not to the price signals of the free market, but to the commands of Larry Fink. That is the first
I know.
sentence.
That's
They're already rolling out the boogeyman, the tropes, the anti-Semitic, the globalist, this guy. They're already naming Larry Fink. In the first sentence of the introduction of this, he's the boogeyman.
And the brilliant part about this
but I'm seeing right through it. I'm seeing right through this.
They have a table of the consolidated holdings of BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, right? Like, so they're showing like 30% of Peabody Energy or whatever. Like, they're showing the consolidated holdings in a bunch of coal companies that are based in their states. And they're saying they're wielding like tremendous amounts of power over these companies. Have you ever looked at the voting records?
I was just going to say.
One fucking voting record.
They actually have a mechanism to wield power over these companies, and they don't. They
never
don't
voted
do that.
out a single
and
director.
we have the actual proof of it here. This is not this is not anecdotal evidence of anything. We have actual proof of their voting records. They don't.
And
they don't vote against them.
Every shareholder proposal they might have voted for that would have won a majority of votes. Let's say in the event that happened, and it does occasionally happen, those are advisory votes, correct?
Sure.
They don't have to do the thing that they said they did. In fact, most of the time, they don't do the thing. They don't bother doing it the way you asked.
Well,
right?
beyond
like that's why As You Sow is doing second things saying, we asked for this report. You gave us some other report. Give us the numbers that we actually want.
Well, speaking of investors like As You Sow and the Nuns, as an example, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, it's not like they don't put up their own shareholder proposals. They could themselves lead campaigns, and they probably would be highly influential if they actually led these campaigns. They don't do any of that. None. Nothing.
They don't do any of the things that you're actually. And you rolled out Larry Fink's name because he wrote a letter.
Larry Fink, right there, first sentence. Larry Fink.
So cowards and liars. So those are your 3 options. Investor governance analysts, not doing their job. Well, assassins do the job.
Yeah.
Anyone who calls any company anywhere woke, and cowards and liars.
Just to stick with the theme of the show, the murder of Brian Thompson, United Healthcare. I got to pick investor governance analyst.
Oh, I like it.
I just hate
that's a controversial.
We struggle with this constantly. When we have one-on-one conversations with people, we're frequently able to get them to feel engaged with what we do. They respond quite readily to the types of material that we cover and the types of the ways in which we attack some of these stories. But it takes a murder. Right?
I know.
For the general population to care about the corporations that are, we are living ostensibly in a corpocracy, and it takes a murder for anyone to pay attention. And yet people will complain for days and hours and weeks about whether their Netflix, stream was good for a horrible fight between a 60-year-old Mike Tyson and some influencer. That they'll complain about ad nauseum, but it takes a literal murder for anyone to pay attention about who's running these corporations and whether they're stakeholder friendly, whether they're shareholder friendly, how much they're making.
Yeah,
all of it.
But I pay for Netflix and I could not see the fight because the streaming was so bad.
See, there you go.
See? Yeah, see.
There you go. All right, what did I vote for?
All right, let's do headlines, winners, predictions, and get out of here.
Where are we? Headline of the week?
Headliniest.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm going to let you go first because I think mine is one of the headliniest ever. So I'm going to. I'm going to let you go first because I think mine trumps yours.
This one just made me giggle. I don't know why. Volkswagen CEO Oliver Bloom reportedly booed by workers after telling them he didn't live in a fantasy world.
Now, what's this referring to? This is referring to the strikes. There's a strike going on at Volkswagen right now, right?
He's clashing with. They're trying to roll out pay cuts for factories,
and they're trying to lay
Germany.
people off. They're trying to
lay people off.
Their pension plans, all things they promised they wouldn't do.
I just like that a CEO has to get in front of a bunch of people and say, "I don't live in a fantasy world."
Yeah.
Like that he's like trying to convince them that he's not in a fantasy.
And yet,
world.
literally, his life is a fantasy world.
I mean,
right? It's like top of the class cars and security and hotels and private jets and private islands. It's a literal fantasy world. Okay, ready for this one, Matt? This one is just crazy. I don't think this is a company that we cover in our database.
Nomura, I think it
actually
is.
It is actually Nomura.
Yeah, of course it is. We cover everything.
Nomura CEO takes pay cut after employee tried to kill clients.
Oh, no.
So this guy stole money from clients and set fire to their house. And so the Nomura CEO Kentaro Okuda took a pay cut for this, and also 9 other Nomura directors and executives also will return 20% to 30% of their pay. Actually, they're going to claw back their pay because one of their workers tried to kill clients. This, to me, is one of the crazier headlines I've ever seen. This is the reason why their pay is getting reduced, because they tried to basically kill their clients. I just find this one crazy.
Another interesting thing about this, Nomura CEO Okuda, the second most influential on the board to executive chair Koji Nagai, who has slightly more influence than him. So, yours is better than mine. I just like the idea.
It's a strange reason for taking a pay cut, right? Why did we get less money this year, Daddy? Because one of our workers tried to kill one of our clients.
Kill the clients, yeah. Also, strange impulse of the worker.
I don't know. Maybe this story has lost its luster. Like, I remember sharing the story at the beginning of the week. This is before the murder of the United Healthcare.
Yeah,
it's kind of lost its luster now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not because this is.
We'll say it's
a dark week. It's a dark week, yeah.
Who won the week, though?
I'm looking at yours. We're aligned here. I don't know if you looked at mine. My winner was amateur ESG conspiracy theorists, because you were speaking about social media going crazy. This the alleged murderer of this executive seems to be a disgruntled stakeholder. Everyone's digging in. To the proxy statement. They're digging into pay. They're digging into investor decks. So I thought, this is a moment for amateur ESG conspiracy theorists. Unfortunately, again, it took a literal murder.
Yeah.
Yeah, for this to happen.
I chose professional ESG conspiracy
theorists. Who are they? Us? Are we the only ones?
I mean, I feel like there's a few of us out there somewhere. Right?
I did break it to Matt that one of the few areas where I'm willing to dip my toe into conspiracy theories is in this corporate world. Like I, for instance, I firmly have believed for 2 decades now that the former CEO of Enron, Ken Lay, didn't actually die in a car crash. That it was staged, and he's on some island somewhere. Living out his golden years. Wow. So maybe in this case, maybe I was thinking maybe this executive knew too much about United Healthcare. Maybe they hired someone to get rid of him, or I don't know. I'm going to a Steven Soderbergh movie in my head.
Yeah, you are.
Immediately.
You're somewhere else.
Yeah.
Do you have a prediction?
I don't really believe that,
or?
but that's just where my head went. My prediction, this is an easy prediction. We're going to see C-suite security spending rising to unprecedented levels in future proxy statements, right?
That's
easy. We used to see it only for certain CEOs, like usually tech or media CEOs. The types of CEOs that need to be famous. They want everyone to know about them. They just have excess wealth and excess property, and the Mark Zuckerberg types. But I think clearly now we're going to see a shift. We're going to see a lot of all other compensation being devoted to all types of C-suite members now.
Do you think it gets, when a new executive comes in, they release an 8K and you get to read their contracts, right?
Yeah.
Like a publicly traded company,
Yeah.
a named executive officer, you can read their contracts. Do you think
Which
it gets
we do.
put into their, which way? Yeah, we're the ones.
We're the only ones. Yeah.
Do you think it gets put into contracts as a line item now?
Absolutely,
I
because
don't see it that much.
Because if the companies that practice good disclosure, they're going to put everything in there. They're not just going to they're not going to not mention that.
I can't tell you how excited I am for that.
That's nothing to get excited about.
I want to know on a market cap relative basis, like what's my security leverage on my, because if you're paying a lot for security for your executives, what does that say about the executives at your company?
Well, I was going to say, yeah.
Right? Like it either means you're in an industry that you screw over enough people that they might want them killed.
That's exactly
right?
my thought, yeah.
Or that you think that they're incredibly important to not have be killed.
Well,
right?
and there's a third thing too.
Or both.
Or like as we see in America, they deem it so that they deem themselves so important that their pay is often 500 times greater than the median pay of other workers. So you're creating an air of disgruntlement, right? I mean, you're taking so much wealth that you're drawing attention to yourself. You don't see this in Asia. You don't see this in a lot of Europe. You don't see executives already, so differentiated in pay that they look like emperors. They look like people. They look like they're making themselves targets, is what I'm trying to say. Just like you see a lot of professional athletes, both football players in America, soccer players in Europe, you see a lot of them targeted for robbery because we know how much money they make. We know where their properties are. Executives in America are the same way. It's the same class of opulence and wealth. You're making yourself a target.
It's actually your prediction is obvious, but
yes, I know.
But the implications of it are what's fascinating, and I just changed my prediction based on it because I had originally that Texas was the winner because they both sued BlackRock, and they'll probably get to hear Musk's new pay case. So
sure.
Texas is winning everywhere, but I think the real winner, the real prediction here is, I think we see gun control in the United States of America for the first time ever. Because now you have a situation where you can't go to an elementary school without lockdown drills because they're worried about mass murders at schools. But as soon as you mass murder executives,
that's true.
Do you think there'd be a gun anywhere in this country if they shot like if an executive thought like, I can't go outside without fear of getting shot. This is how I feel sending like my daughter to elementary school, right? Like, because you never know in this country. Like Newtown is 20 miles like west of me, right? Like it's not far, and it's the same type of people who live here, right? So imagine like if security costs keep going up. At some point, doesn't it get cheaper to just lobby for gun control, have gun control, and remove the cost from shareholders of security and like remove the fear? I think this is the greatest idea I've ever had.
Or you could stop pissing off your stakeholders so much. I'm not blaming pay wholly for this, but what if your pay was just capped at like 10% higher than your highest paid employee?
Yeah, you're a socialist.
People would like you more, though.
That's Damian Ross, Hazelnut Rawlis. I'm your AnalystHole Matt Moscardi. We are Free Float. We'll be back.
That was
next
exhausting.
week.
It's too much murder. I don't like this.
Yeah, this was not a happy show.
No.
We'll be back next week, though.
Normal shows.
We'll be back on Tuesday. I think We'll maybe be back on Friday. Who knows? We'll be back next week.
Where are we going? Come on.
We got places to go.
No, I
See you
don't.
until then. Goodbye.